And I believe we're recording.
Great.
All right. Hello and welcome everybody to another virtual edition of Cake and Conversation. I'm Kristen, and with me this month is my special guest, Joy Pratt-Schiffman, Chair of the Cohasset 250 Committee. And Joy is here. She's going to catch us up on the latest happenings with Cohasset 250. And then we're going to move over to a topic that is of great interest to both of us, the historic houses of Cohasset. So Joy, let's get started.
Hi there. Sorry that I can't be there in person, and I'm especially sorry that there's no cake.
There's no cake. I know. I didn't want to mention that to you. It's so heartbreaking to me every month.
That's okay. I know. My daughter was like, I was told there would be cake.
Cake. It's the best part.
So I'm going to switch over and share a little PowerPoint, talk a little bit about 250, which has not gone away entirely, although, you know, circumstances have obviously changed. And then we're going to talk about one of the projects that is going forward with 250 that is my favorite, so we're glad we're saving it. So I'm going to switch over. We can do this. Getting so good. All right.
Yeah.
So, as you know, 2020 was Cohasset's 250th anniversary, our sesquicentennial. And, you know, oops. Oh, now it's not going to go. Oh, there we go. And, you know, we always impressed upon people that it wasn't just going to be a party. It was actually a year-long celebration of the town, a cultural event meant to build community, recognize and honor our past, celebrate our present, and leave a lasting legacy. Now, because a lot of the events have been canceled, it doesn't mean we still can't achieve a lot of these objectives. We still have strong support from a lot of organizations in town. The library's on there, the Boy Scouts, the Art Center. A lot of people are, you know, changing what they're doing, but still sort of contributing to the overall spirit of Cohasset 250. We had a great kickoff in the beginning of January, and we were off to a rip-roaring start before, you know, the pandemic hit, but it really was a nice family event and a great way to open the year. And around town, you still see the spirit of Cohasset 250. Our signs are up, our logos are on town vehicles and on businesses around town. And there is still a lot of support. Our Instagram feed is wildly.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Isn't it great? It just reminds you every day that we live in a special place. We have our own hashtag that we've invented called Cohassetisms, and we show things that are just unique to life in the town. And it's a really fun thing to look at if you haven't looked at it. It's terrific.
Yeah, it's great.
And our merchandise is still happening. So a plug for our merchandise. Now that stores and things are opening again, we feel comfortable launching our merchandise back on our website, cohasset250.com, and we will do local pickup. Darylyn's and some other retailers are doing some safely distanced local pickup for us, and we're going to be popping up in some different locations and doing some specials because we still have some great merchandise.
Good.
So, so just before I get to this, we are looking at scaling back and rescheduling something for Thanksgiving weekend. It is a weekend chock full of our Cohassetisms. You know, there's a football game, there's a road race, so, you know, Santa comes by boat, lots of people come home from college if they're going to college, though they will be coming back. And so we will be having events to celebrate the year, including a time capsule and some other fun things sort of gleaned from all the best parts of the events we were planning for the year. So keep a lookout for how that's going to take shape. So the project that I was talking about earlier that is going forward is called the Heritage Trail Project. It encompasses, for this year it was going to be a house tour, a publication, and a plaquing program. The house tour is going to happen next spring. The Historical Society is going to do that.
Great.
The publication is ongoing, and we've gotten a little extra time. And the plaque program, which I'll explain, is happening as well. So people might be familiar around town. There's a lot of historic homes that have these red markers on them. It was a program that was done in 1970 to highlight the historic homes in town. So there's the original book was this little 5x7 pamphlet done in the 70s. It featured 94 of the original homes in town, but it really didn't have more than just sort of the who built it, when, and very few copies remain. I think a lot of people have them squirreled away in their houses, but the library might have a few copies, the Historical Society. But this is sort of what it looked like. It was, you know, just a little snapshot of the house and a little bit of history, but you know, not a lot. And a lot of the houses do not have these on them. And some people that buy the house aren't sure what HT stands for. I've heard a lot of different versions. But we're going to revamp this whole program. And we're going to include 250 of the oldest homes in town. Just to,
now, how far, I see this original one goes to 1811.
Yes, so the original one went to 1811. There were a couple of addendums done that brought it up to about 1840. There was a little bit of selective choosing. It wasn't a complete survey of all the houses. Some were left out because they weren't attractive, but this you're going to, you know, include everything. And we wanted to get to 250 structures, so that brought it up to about 1860.
Wow, that's
kind of interesting because as you see, I'll explain a little bit about the research, but we weren't quite sure which houses were going to be included, but I'll explain that. So why a new book? You know, we want to celebrate in conjunction with 250. We wanted to celebrate the architectural history of the town, bring awareness to our town's past. You know, who lived here, who built these homes, and why. And it's the most complete story of the houses of Cohasset. It's never been done before to this extent. Many of the buildings have actually been lost since the 1970s book. And it's a record of what remains here today during our anniversary. And also, we might be able to inspire a little preservation.
Yeah, I hope so.
So the research for this book was totally interesting. You know, there's many houses in town that have plaques on them that say circa, you know, whatever date. And we took our research team, which was a group from the Cohasset Historical Society. It was a group from the Cohasset Historical Society who started from scratch, took no date for granted. They have researched, we got a group of about 300 houses because we weren't quite sure which ones were going to ultimately fall into this category. We had 10 people, and they searched registry of deeds and assessor's records and genealogies and solicited the homeowners. We had to go back to Hingham records as well because we were Hingham before 1770, so it was a very comprehensive project. We also wanted to include historical photos. So these also came from the Historical Society, Hingham, Cohasset, from homeowners. There were some things from the DAR. There were some photo clubs back in the day. It was just, it's been amazing actually digging these up. This is a great picture of the common where it literally just looks sort of like a puddle that might appear after a rainstorm with a chain link fence around it. This is from the late 1800s.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Isn't that fun? That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's great.
So the photography came from the Historical Society, from the DAR, from photo clubs, and then all the photographs were re-photographed digitally and enhanced a little bit. For an example, here's a picture of the town hall after a town meeting with all these men in their hats. But you can see the difference in the quality. Done some retouching. And left them, and we shot them so you could see the whole outline of the picture, not just the image, you know, so you could see the cardboard that it was on and stuff.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
We also photographed artifacts. This is actually a lottery ticket that was from the 1700s. that was associated with a house on the Common, and the story is told in the book. And then we got, this is in the picture, this is an old picture of Beechwood. This is a house on Beach Street, and this is the lottery tickets. We had a lot of fun really digging up some things that hadn't been seen for a while.
And where is that house? That's really pretty.
So that house is actually the corner of Beach Street and the Common. It's where Coffees live right now. That porch is not there. It's very different.
Wow.
It's so fun. Some of the houses look exactly the same, and some, you know, are sort of unrecognizable. But if you look at this long enough, you can kind of see that.
You can't, right. Yeah, now I can. Oh, I love it though.
Without the porch.
Really?
It's the house that has the ghosts dancing around the
exactly,
tree.
yeah, right. Yep. Oh, it's great.
And then, of course, contemporary photos. That's the most fun part. You know, this is going to be a coffee table book, and it's really going to highlight the beautiful homes around town. For the contemporary photos, we've been shooting for the last year or so, and now with our extension, thanks to COVID-19, we're shooting a lot more, reshooting some things in the spring to get more beautiful gardens and things. But we've shot over 250 buildings. Again, it's a catalog of the early Cohasset homes, even the ones that don't make it into the book. You know, we're really cataloging the old homes in town. For example, you know, this is the oldest house in town, the Joshua Bates house. It's on South Main Street. You go by it, you know, it's very close to the corner of Summer Street with near St. Anthony's. But the top picture, that's what you see from the road. You know, this house, we've sort of, you know, we've gone around and shot it from the front so you can really get a better, more comprehensive view of the house, you know, different from the 1970s book. We're really showing many sides and details of the houses that really haven't been seen before. And yes, 1695 is the oldest existing house in Cohasset.
Oh. It's funny you should mention that, because from the front I don't recognize it, but from the side, yeah, I drive by there every day.
Everybody drives by it, and you know, I don't think a lot of people know it's the oldest house in Cohasset.
No.
Or Hingham at the time was built. But.
Now, where do people get those, you know, those signs that say the Joshua Bates house?
So there's no formal program for those. You know, this one, I think it looks like it was homemade.
Yeah.
There's a local sign maker that makes them, and some people make them themselves, but it's not formal. And, you know, we laugh. We're going to be keeping the sign makers in town busy because the research has really redated a lot of these homes, and a lot of these signs aren't particularly accurate anymore. So there's going to be people, you know, scrambling to get or crossing them out, you know.
Yeah. I live in an old house, not that old, but I always wanted one anyway, even though we were built around 1880. But I always thought, oh, it'd be kind of nice. And the woman who, the family who bought it, the woman's name was on the deed, which I guess was fairly common. So it's actually the Mary Roach house. And I'd like a little sign that says that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I know, that's going to be interesting. The whole process of actually getting these new plaques on the houses is a lot more complicated than you'd imagine, because there's 94 of them that exist, and we're adding all these other ones. The original Heritage Trail was laid out alphabetically by street. This one's going to be done by date. So the actual numbering and putting plaques on houses is going to be
I imagine, right? So they make sense.
If anybody in the audience would like to volunteer to help with that, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Deal.
All right, so the actual book, I mentioned it's going to be a coffee table book, and it's going to have a hard cover. It's going to be 9 by 12, so when it's open and spread, it's going to be, really, really highlight the images. High quality printing, cloth binding, acid-free paper, dust jacket. It's going to be about 160 pages long, and designed to accentuate the historic nature of the stories we're telling. And we hope to have a couple donated to the library to have there for research, and really excited to get them in hand. So the content is actually going to be what we're talking about. Really stories of the town. We've divided it into districts and sort of you know, clumped the houses together into districts and sort of talked about what each section of town, you know, why people built there, when people built there, the character of different parts of town. So each one opens with a narrative of the district and then talks about the houses. And like we said, it combines contemporary photography, artifacts, vintage photography, and you know, just stories. You know, storytelling is such an important part of our life right now. We want to tell the stories of these homes and the people that lived in them.
Who did the artwork for the cover?
So the artwork for the cover is it's kind of difficult. You know, do we have just one gorgeous shot? Do we highlight one house? Is it a collage? We're still sort of debating that. And we have a cover image that we're leaning towards. We're sort of keeping it under wraps right now. So this is an example of sort of what one of the chapters might look like. And then here's an example of one of the houses. This is a house everybody's familiar with. It's at the end of Sawyer Street. It's actually the very end of the Cohasset Common Historic District. You know, again, been by it a million times. Who knew that the original part of the house was actually from 1713? Doesn't actually look like that old. And, you know, we have an old picture with the side of the house. We decided to feature because that little portico on the side was actually moved there from a house in Cambridge. So the pictures help with the narrative. This is just one example. There's highlighted houses, and then there'll be, here's some more houses on the common, old picture, new picture. And there's the house that we showed you before, you know, with what it looks like current day, what our old picture. I think these pictures were taken, oh gosh, I forget. We have one photo album at the Historical Society that's quite old where many of these came from, and I forget the year. But and then in a district like the Common, there's also you know, public buildings that fall into the category, and you know, have some fun old and new pictures of those. I love the Congregational Church. It's unrecognizable in its old form with those very scary Gothic windows and things. It does not look nearly as inviting as it does today.
You're right. Wow.
So I'm just going to go back for a second. So that's kind of a sneak peek into what we're doing. And the other districts include north of the Common, so North Main Street, Shore Roads, which, you know, there aren't as many of the antique homes, you know, along the waterfront. There's a lot around the harbor and sort of that in the working harbor. We did King Street, which actually Sawyer Street used to be called King Street. So it's part of, we will go Sawyer down into Beechwood. Beechwood has its own section, you know, a lot of its antique housing stock down there.
Yep.
So it's fun. A lot of time and energy has been put into this by the ladies at the Historical Society. And we wrote letters to 300 homeowners asking them for insight into their house, telling them what we're doing, talking about the plaquing program. And we got probably 80% of them back, all filled out with really interesting information. So it's been a real collaborative effort.
When did you start doing all this?
So we started planning the whole Cohasset 250 program about 3.5 years ago, almost 4. And this always came up, that this sort of piece about antique homes needed to be part of it. So the idea has been, you know, forming for about 3 years, but the research started in earnest about a year and a half ago. And it's been full time.
It sounds like it, but what a great asset to the whole community and to the future of the community.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
Book.
You know, it's interesting, and like we said a couple times, you see these houses are sort of iconic, and they're just a part of the fabric of the town, and it's so fun to read just little blips about the people that built them, and some of the stories are funny, and some are, you know, tragic, and just interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I know, the houses, that's one of the main reasons we moved here. We just drove around and was like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful community we've ever seen. Let's try to live here. Now, we bought the smallest house in town, but hey, it's fabulous. And it's just so
Um,
just
uh,
see how you go on a Jeru's cruise, a couple
a
times
Jeru's
a
Creek,
week.
I know that's a new thing.
Yeah.
I need to excuse myself for half a second. What's up?
Just to let you know, I'm gonna leave the fan running back there so the compound dries overnight.
Great.
Don't be alarmed if you hear something spinning.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
Oh, so,
Technically,
Zoom.
although there's very few people here. Speaking of, I just wanted to sort of finish this
Yep.
with just sort of bringing everything together. So the Historical Society's been instrumental in this, and as you know, the current Historical Society building is the old library. So I was kind of thinking, of just sort of tying it all together with, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I am an old house buff, and I recently actually, we bought Paul Pratt's house and have been fixing it all up. So I feel like this has all come together. So the library that everybody, or the library building that everybody is so familiar with, was built in 1903. Paul Pratt actually passed away in the mid 1800s, and his daughters, Sarah and Harriet, endowed the library in his name. And I just, there's one thing that I was sort of doing a little research on him, and I love the way this is worded. Paul Pratt wasn't, super wealthy. He was a great contributor to the community. He was the first president of the Classic Savings Bank. He was very instrumental in creating a public education for town. There wasn't like a unified public education, and he and a group of men actually started the first high school here. But it's funny. So he left his modest estate to his daughters, and it says here that Sarah and Harriet, which through wise management and shrewd investment by their trustees and simple and careful living, increased this endowment and were able to open the library 50 years after their father's death.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And so Paul Pratt actually lived at 190 South Main Street, which is not too far from the intersection with Summer Street, and really not too far from where the library was built. The land was given actually by a relative, sea captain, and where the daughters built the library. But he lived right down the street. He built this house in 1830 on some land given to him by his dad. And as you can see, it's very classic Greek Revival. It's still very much in the shape it was when it was built. There was an L on the back that sort of fell off that we removed. But it's been really fun to dig in and restore this old place. Not a lot was done to damage it inside. I'm not doing any inside pictures right now. That's for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody loves a little before and after. So
Yep.
of us after we painted it and kind of tamed the front yard a little, so you could see it, but the bones are still there. And one of the fun things for me is Paul Pratt is actually a relative of mine, but because his daughters never married, they his line didn't continue, so he's more of a great uncle of mine. But that's been kind of extra fun to bring it back. And I have one more before and after, because who doesn't love a before and after?
Exactly.
There's the side, and it's a charming house, but if you get too close, you could see everything sort of rotting. The slate roof was in terrible condition. It was all knob and tube wiring. It now has all new plumbing, and the windows.
Gosh, what a task!
It's been a labor of love. It's been well over a year, and I just wanted. This is actually this weekend.
Look, oh.
Hanging the flag for Memorial Day. You can see we still need to do some grass, and there's left to do, but this is this is sort of our contribution to saving some old houses in Cohasset.
It's a beautiful house.
Fun.
It's interesting. It's almost like sideways to the street.
Yeah, so it's funny, the gable end is very, and that was probably, there's so little information on this house, and it's sort of a microcosm of everything we've done with this book to try to figure out what the heck went on. It's possible that just this very front part, the gable end, was the original part of the house, and that L you see sticking off might not have even been original. So it could have been just this very modest middle section when it was built, and then, you know, the side was
Yep.
later. And then in some sort of digging around in the basement kind of confirmed that maybe the front part is older.
So how's the basement? Like
I am 5'10", and I can walk around in the basement, which is nice.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
No crouching over. It's still fieldstone. You can see the foundation are these big blocks of granite.
Yep.
Anyway.
Oh, it's beautiful. You guys have just done a fabulous job with it. Gorgeous.
It's been very fun. I'm gonna unshare.
Yep.
It's been it's been fun.
Oh, this is unprofessional. I'll be right back. I'm gonna show you a picture. All right. Since we're talking about old houses, this is picture of our house. This has been passed down from owner to owner. So this was taken, this is the original family that lives in it. And what we like is that the house is 1,300 square feet. And there were 9 people plus a dog that all lived in this house.
Amazing.
And I just love that because, like, the 4 of us, we're cramped enough.
Where is that?
And North Main, 320 North Main.
Well, you must be in the book. What year is it?
It didn't appear in the census until 1890, but the land was purchased in 1879. So we had a genealogist look into it, and she thinks the house actually dates closer to 1880, 81.
Just outside of what we're doing. I know I keep saying there needs to be another book, because there's a lot of great things happened after 1860, but we have to
right.
somewhere.
And that one thing, it's sensitive around here that pains me is that people would come in the future and say, oh, this house is too small, and just knock it down and build something larger. But no, I just will always point out, no, it was good enough for 9 people at one point. Come on, 4 people.
It's funny you show that picture, because we do have a lot of these older homes with people out front, and we laugh because you think, it was, not everybody could afford to have pictures taken of their house, but it was a special thing to have a picture taken of your house. And you think that everyone would be standing out there sort of formal, but they're all sort of separated and looking in different directions, almost like the style was to, act natural. It was so funny.
Oh, that would be great looking through those pictures.
Yeah,
I wish I knew you guys had been doing this. I would have definitely wanted to help out. It's right up my alley.
Honestly, there's still plenty to do. The house tour. So next spring there's going to be a house tour, probably 5 or 6 of houses from that era. Trying to get houses in different parts of town and different kind of styles of architecture and things. And the homeowners have been amazing. We picked houses, for their time, for their architectural details, and some of them just because they have really great stories. So that'll be probably next June.
Okay.
But we always
will be good.
We always need helpers for that, to help people, navigate around the homes and things.
Oh, fabulous. And so the next Cohasset 250 we have to look forward to, you said, is Thanksgiving.
So Thanksgiving, there will be some sort of event. The idea of public events is evolving and changing. Yep. Out of this whole thing, some really kind of creative ways for people to get together are coming. they're doing some neat stuff for the seniors at the Music Circus this year with sort of a big drive-in
Oh, good.
restaurant. So, hopefully by this fall we'll be able to gather
Yep.
some way. But, if we're not, there's still things to do. But we'll still be doing. We still have also a publication that we're writing, a commemorative guide that's going to come out this fall. And we'll start to do some things online and start to do some virtual things. But right now the committee is just sort of catching our breath and rolling up our sleeves and
All that work, all that planning for 3 years, and then having the plug kind of pulled, that must have been very disappointing. I know, hearing that myself, I was disappointed.
Yeah, we the way everybody's looking at it is there's people that had a lot worse things happen. And we, like I said, we're going to kind of resurrect the very best parts of all the planning and reimagine it for the fall. And some things will happen next year. It won't be under the banner of 250, but some of these events and programs will be run just by individual organizations.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. This has been really interesting. I'm looking forward to next spring.
Yeah, I would have loved to have, had live people in case people.
I know.
But if people have questions, there's an info button on Cohasset 250 where you can email us directly and ask things, or there's also the Historical Society also has an informational place you can contact us on their website if people have questions about the book or about 250 or anything else related to Cohasset.
And maybe next spring I'll have you back. I mean, that's something too. Just
that'd be fun.
Do it again in front of a live audience.
Great.
It'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you. Bye.